This is Freya here. I'm going to be reading a book to you tonight, and it's called The Mars Mystery, Tale of the End of Two Worlds. And the authors are Graham Hancock, Robert Boisville, I hope I said that right, and John Grigsbury. Chapter 1, A Parallel World. Although separated by tens of millions of miles of empty space, Mars and Earth participate in a mysterious communion. Repeated exchanges of materials have taken place between the two planets, the most recent involving spacecraft from Earth, and have landed on Mars since the early 1970s. Likewise, we now know that chunks of rock thrown off from the surface of Mars periodically crash into the Earth. By 1997, a dozen meteorites had been firmly identified on the basis of their chemical composition and as having originated on Mars. They are known technically as SNC meteorites after Shergoti and Nakla and Shazingni, the names given to the first three such meteorites found, and researchers around the world are on the lookout for more. According to the calculations by Dr. Colin Pillinger of the UK Planetary Sciences Research Institute, 100 tons of Martian material arrives on Earth each year. One of the Mars meteorites, ALH 8401, was found in Antarctica in 1984. It contains tiny tubular structures that NASA scientists sensationally identified in August 1996 as possible microscopic fossils of bacterial-like organisms that may have lived on Mars more than 3.6 billion years ago. In October 1996, scientists at Britain's Open University announced that a second Martian meteorite, EETA 7901, had also been found to contain the chemical signatures of life. In this case, astonishingly, organisms that could have existed on Mars as recently as 600,000 years ago. Two probes were launched by NASA in 1996: Mars Pathfinder, a lander/rover, and Mars Surveyor, an orbiter. Further missions are budgeted to follow through to AD 2005, when an attempt will be made to scoop up a chunk of the surface, rock or soil of Mars, and then return the sample to Earth. Russia and Japan are also sending probes to Mars to undertake a range of scientific tests and experiments. In the longer term, there are plans to terraform the red planet. This would involve the induction of greenhouse gases and simple bacteria from Earth. Over a period of centuries, the warming effects of the gases and the metabolic processes of the bacteria would transform the Martian atmosphere, making it habitable by more and more complex species either introduced or locally evolved. How likely is it that humanity will be able to fulfill this plan to seed Mars with life? Apparently, it is only a matter of finding the money. The technology to do the job already exists. Ironically, however, the existence of life on Earth itself remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of science. Nobody knows when, why, or how it began here. It just seems to have exploded suddenly, out of nowhere, at a very large stage in the planet's history. Although the Earth itself is thought to have formed 4.5 billion years ago, the most ancient surviving rocks are younger than that, about 4 billion years old. Traces of microscopic organisms have been found going back almost 3.9 billion years. This transformation of inanimate matter into life is a miracle that has never since repeated itself, and that even the most advanced scientific laboratories cannot replicate? Or are we really to believe that such an amazing piece of cosmic alchemy could have occurred by chance in just the first few 100 million years of the Earth's long existence? Professor Fred Hoyle of Cambridge University does not think so. His explanation for the origin of life on Earth so soon after the formation of the planet is that it was imported from outside the solar system on great interstellar comets. Some fragments collided with the Earth, releasing spores that had been held in suspended animation in the cometary ice. The spores spread out and took root all around the new formed planet, which was soon densely colonized by hardy microorganisms. These slowly evolved and diversified, eventually producing the immense range of life forms that we know today. An alternative and more radical theory, supported by a number of scientists, is that the Earth could have been deliberately terraformed 3.9 billion years ago, just as we are now preparing to terraform Mars. This theory presupposes the existence of an advanced starfaring civilization, or more likely, many such civilizations distributed throughout the universe. Most scientists do not see the need for the comets or aliens. Their theory, the mainstream view, is that life arose on Mars accidentally, without any outside interference. They further argue on the basis of widely agreed calculations about the size and composition of the universe that there are probably hundreds of millions of Earth-like planets spread randomly across billions of light years and in interstellar space. They point out that it is impossible, amidst such legions of suitable planets, that life would have evolved only on the Earth. Why not Mars? In our own solar system, the first planet out from the Sun, tiny seething Mercury, is believed to have been uncongenial to any imaginable form of life. So too is Venus, the second planet from the Sun, where concentrated sulfuric acid pours down 24 hours a day from poisonous clouds. Earth is the third planet from the Sun. The fourth, Mars, is indisputably the most Earth-like in the solar system. Its axis is tilted at an angle of 24.935 degrees in relation to the plane of its orbit around the Sun. The Earth's axis is tilted to 23.5 degrees. It makes a complete rotation around its axis in 24 hours, 39 minutes, 36 seconds. The Earth's rotational period is 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 5 seconds. Like the Earth, it is subject to the cyclic axial wobble that astronomers call precession. Like the Earth, it is not a perfect sphere, but is somewhat flattened at the poles and expanded into a bulge at the equator. Like the Earth, it has 4 seasons. Like the Earth, it has icy polar caps, mountains, deserts, and dust storms. And although Mars today is a freezing hell, there is evidence that in some ancient period it was alive with oceans and rivers and enjoyed a climate and atmosphere quite similar to those of the Earth. How probable, how probable is it that the spark which ignited life on Earth would not also have made its mark on neighboring similar Mars? Whether the Earth was deliberately terraformed, in other words, or whether it was seeded with the spores of life from crashed comets, or whether indeed life arose here spontaneously and accidentally, it's reasonable to hope that we might find traces of the same kind of process on Mars. If such traces are not forthcoming, then the chances that we are alone in the universe increase, and the chances of life being discovered anywhere else are dramatically reduced. The implication will be that Earth's life forms emerged under conditions so focused, specialized, and unique, and at the same time so random that they could not be replicated even on a nearby world belonging to the same solar family. How much less likely, therefore, that they could be replicated on alien worlds or in orbit around distant stars. For this reason, the question of life on Mars must be regarded as one of the great philosophical mysteries of our time. With the rapid advances in exploration of the planet, it is a mystery that is soon likely to be solved. Hints of life. The evidence so far from Mars takes four principal forms: Earth-based observations using telescopes, observations and photographs from orbiting spacecraft, chemical and radiological tests carried out on Martian soil samples by NASA landers, which the results being transmitted back to Earth for analysis, microscopic examination of meteorites known to have come from Mars. In the late 19th and early 20th century, Earth-based telescopes produced the first ever life on Mars sensation, the claim that the planet was checkered with a gigantic network of irrigation canals, bringing water from the poles to the parched equatorial regions. This claim, which we shall discuss further in part 2, was put forward by Percival Lowell, a prominent US astronomer, and made an indelible mark on the collective psyche of Americans. Most scientists ridiculed Lowell's ideas, however, and in the 1970s, NASA's Mariner 9 and Viking 1 and 2 probes orbited the planet and sent back definitive photographs proving that there are no canals. It is now recognized that Lowell and others who also claimed to have seen the canals were the victims of poor quality telescopic images and an optical illusion which causes the brain to link disparate, unconnected features into straight lines. Even today, no Earth based telescope has sufficient resolution to allow us to solve the mystery of life on Mars. We must therefore make our deductions using the three other types of evidence available to us: Martian meteorites, orbiter observations, lander observations. We have already seen that two of the Martian meteorites appear to contain traces of primitive microorganisms, although many scientists do not agree with this interpretation. Less well known is the fact that a number of tests carried out in 1976 by the Viking landers also proved positives for life. The impression conveyed in public statements made at the time by NASA is that the planet is barren because no organic molecules were found on the surface at either or of the two landing sites. Puzzlingly, however, the Martian samples did give positive results for metabolic processes such as photosynthesis and chemosynthesis that are normally associated with life. What results with soil samples liberating substantial quantities of oxygen is in response to treatment with an organic nutrient. Another positive result produced in a labeled release experiment was absent in a control sample that had been baked at high temperature precisely as one would expect if the original reaction had been caused by a biological agent. This leaves the orbiter observations in frames sent back by Mariner 9 and Viking 1. Strangely familiar objects can be seen that have been interpreted by some scientists not only as signs of life, but as evidence that advanced intelligent life must once have been present on Mars. The Pyramids of Elysium. The earliest anomalous images were acquired during 1972 and show an area of Mars known as the Elysium Quadrangle. At first, attention was paid to these images. Then, in 1974, a brief notice appeared in the peer-reviewed journal Icarus, written by Mark Gibson Jr. and Victor K. Ablordeppey. The article reported that triangular and pyramid-like structures have been observed on the Martian surface, located in the east-central portion of Elysium Quadrangle. These features are visible on the Mariner photographs. B frames MTVS 42053, DAS 077 94853, and MTVS 429624. DAS 129858882. The structures cast triangular and polygonal shadows. Steep-sided volcanic cones and impact craters occur only a few kilometers away. The mean the mean diameter of the triangular pyramidal structures at the base is approximately 3 kilometers, and the mean diameter of the polygonal structures is approximately 6 kilometers. Another Mariner photograph, frame number 420578, quite distinctly shows four massive three-sided pyramids. These were commented on in 1977 by Cornell University astronomer Carl Sagan. The largest, he wrote, are 3 kilometers across and at the base and 1 kilometer high, much larger than the pyramids of Sumer, Egypt, or Mexico on Earth. They seem to have eroded and ancient and are perhaps only small mountains sandblasted for ages, but they warrant, I think, a careful look. What is particularly notable about the four structures captured in the latter frame is that they appear to have been set out on the Martian surface in a definite pattern or alignment, very like pyramids on terrestrial sites. In this day, although have much in common with other Martian pyramids that lie in a region known as Cydonia, at approximately 40 degrees north latitude, almost halfway around the planet from Elysium. Pyramids and the face of Cydonia. The Cydonia pyramids were photographed in 1976 by the Viking 1 orbiter from an altitude of about 1,500 kilometers and were first identified on Viking frame 35A72 by Dr. Tobias Owen, now professor of astronomy at the University of Hawaii. The same frame, covering approximately 55 by 50 kilometers, about the size of Greater London, also shows many other features that could be artificial. Casual glance reveals only a jumble of hills, craters, and escarpments. Gradually, however, as though a veil is being lifted, the blurred scene begins to feel organized and structured, too intelligent to be the result of random natural processes. Although the scale is grander, it does look the way some archaeological sites on Earth might look if photographed from 1,500 kilometers up. The more closely you examine it, and the more it becomes apparent that it really could be a assemble of enormous ruined monuments on the surface of Mars. Of these, by far the most dramatic is a gigantic sphinx-like face, which NASA officially dismisses as a trick of the light and shadow. This explanation began to be challenged seriously only after 1980, as we shall see in Part 2, when Vincent D. Petrio, himself a computer scientist with NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland, discovered another image of the face on frame 70A13. The second image, which had been acquired 35 Martian days later than the first one and under different light conditions, made possible comparative views and detailed measurements of the face. Complete with its distinctive headdress, it is now known to be almost 2.6 kilometers in length from the crown to the chin and 1.9 kilometers wide and just under 800 meters high. It could be a small mountain, naturally weathered, but how many mountains have been left on right sides so intricately similar? Image analysis say that the bilateral symmetry of the face, mimicking a natural, almost human appearance, is most unlikely to have come about by any chance, and the impression is confirmed by other characteristics that have subsequently been identified under computer enhancement. These include teeth in the mouth, bilaterally crossed lines above the eyes, and regular lateral stripes on the headpiece, suggestive, to some researchers at least, of the name's headdress of ancient Egyptian pharaohs. According to Dr. Mark Carlotto, an expert in image processing, all these features appear in both of the Viking images are coherent shapes and are structurally integral to the object. Therefore, they could not have been caused by random noise or by artifacts of the image restoration and enhancement process. An improbable assortment of anomalies. The same is also true for the DNM pyramid, named after Petrio and his associate Gregory Molinar, who discovered it. This five-sided structure stands out 16 kilometers from the face, and like the Great Pyramid of Egypt, it aligned almost perfectly north-south towards the spin axis of the planet. Its shortest side is 1.5 kilometers. Its long axis extended to 3 kilometers, and it is almost 800 meters high, and it has been estimated to contain over a cubic mile of material. Commenting on the proximity of the face and the DNM pyramid, US researcher Richard Hoagland asks a pointed question: what are the odds against two terrestrial-like mountain monuments on such an alien planet and essential at the same location? Hoagland has made his own detailed study of frames 35A72 and 70A13 and has identified additional, possibly artificial features. These include the so-called fort, which with its two distinctive straight edges, and the city, which he describes as a remarkably rectilinear arrangement of massive structures interspersed with several smaller pyramids, some at exact right angles to the larger structures, and even smaller conical shaped buildings. Hoagland also points out another striking fact about the city. It seems to have been purposefully sited in such a way that hypothetical inhabitants would have enjoyed a perfect, indeed almost ceremonial view of the face. The impression of the great ritual center, shrouded under the dust of ages, is enhanced by other features of Cydonia, such as the Tholus, a massive mound similar to Britain's Salisbury Hill, and the city square, a grouping of four mounds centered on a fifth, smaller ground. This configuration, so suggestive of crosshairs turns out to be located at the exact lateral centre of the city. In addition, a group of British researchers based in Glasgow have recently identified what looks like a massive four-sided pyramid, the so-called NK pyramid, 40 kilometers west of the face and on the same latitude as the DNM pyramid. Looking at the whole of Cydonia and at the way all these structures are sited, says Chris O'Kane of the Mars Project UK, my gut feeling is that they have to be artificial. I don't see any way that such a complex system of alignments could have come about by chance. King's hunch is strengthened by the fact that many of the structures are non-fractal. In plain English, this means that their contours have been scanned and assessed as artificial rather than natural by highly sophisticated computers of the type normally used in modern warfare to pinpoint the locations of camouflaged tanks and artillery in aerial reconnaissance reconnaissance photographs. What we have, therefore, sums up Chris O'Kane, is improbable assortment of anomalies. They have what look like planned alignments. They're found in distinctive groups and they're non-fractal. All in all, we have to say this is highly unusual. Nor are Cydonia and the Elysium the only sites to have yielded photographic evidence of unusual and apparently artificial structures. Other Martian features that are decidedly non-fractal included a straight line nearly 5 kilometers long defined by a row of small pyramids, a single pyramid poised on the edge of the gigantic crater, extensive rhomboidal enclosures in the south polar region, and a weird castle-like edifice rising to the steeple more than 600 meters high. Gallery of Mysteries. In 1996, during the last year of his life, Carl Sagan made a curious comment about the face on Mars. The structure, he said, was probably sculpted by slow geological processes over millions of years. Nevertheless, he added, I could be wrong. It's hard to be sure about a world we've seen so little of in an extreme close-up. Sagan urged that forthcoming American and Russian missions to Mars should make special efforts to look much more closely at the pyramids and at what some people call the face of the city. These features merit closer attention with higher resolution. More detailed photos of the face would be surely settle issues of symmetry and help resolve the debate between geological and monumental structure. We do not share Sagan's confidence that higher resolution photographs will resolve the debate. Until astronauts land on Mars and explore Cydonia, even the best photographic images are likely to leave room for doubt in both directions. Matters are further complicated by the fact that NASA's policy statements concerning the pyramids and the face have frequently been bizarre and contradictory. Smelling of the secretive or even dishonest agenda, these statements have inevitably provoked some observers to make mental links between the monuments of Mars and the UFO controversy. Roswell Area 51, alleged abductions by aliens, etc. The effect has been to fuel the paranoia, particularly rampant in in the United States, that a massive government cover-up is underway. We return to the pyramids and the face of Mars in part 2 and investigative allegations of conspiracy of parts 3 and 5. Our immediate aim in part 1 is to explore the planet itself and to enter its gallery of mysteries. The greatest mystery of all is why Mars died. So that was just the first chapter. Hope you're having a nice evening, and I will resume with another video, carrying on with this video. This is my first video, so please be patient while I'm still learning to do this. I hope you have a nice evening. Good night.